Welcome to the garage, and on today's episode of Fix Your Daughter's Corvette, we're working on the drive shaft. We've got it sitting here on the workbench. We have all new parts. From Texas Driveline, we got a set of bearings that comes with the slingers, got all the snap rings, O-rings, everything you need. And then we have brand new German couplers. Made in Germany. These are supposed to be the good ones. They fit BMWs, and I've heard bad things about like the Dorman brand, so went with these. Hopefully these will hold up good. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to rebuild one end at a time. We need to take the bolts out to get the coupler out, and then we'll press this bearing and the slinger off and then put the new pieces in. First thing I want to do is punch mark to where I can put this back together in the same place that it came off of. You could use a marker or something, but I tend to have a bad habit of when I go to cleaning stuff, I end up losing my mark. So punch mark's better. These babies are tight. The easiest way I found out to do it was with a crowbar under the opposite bolt head, then a big long break over on that side. You know, if you don't have an impact that'll pop them loose. This worked good, break them free. Okay. Got the bolts out. We still got to take these off to replace the coupler. There's got a little plastic spacer there, and that fits inside there. Keep everything lined up. We'll pull these bolts out, then we'll change the bearing and the slinger, and then we can bolt the new coupler back on and then bolt it back onto the drive shaft. Breaking the bolts free on the other side is a lot easier if you got a bench vise. You can just put it in there like that, and they pop right loose. All right, the old junk coupler is now removed. And they have GM marked on them, and they're also made in Germany. So lots of blue Loctite on everything. We'll want to make sure to do that when we put it back together. In order to get the bearing off, we need to remove the slinger because there's a snap ring underneath it. So we will pry that up and off of there, probably destroy it in the process. We have a new one to go on there, so not a problem. And then we'll take the assembly over to the press and press the old bearing off. Slinger popped right off. There's the snap ring. Pop it loose next. Okay, the shaft is in the press. Snap ring is off. We're ready to give her a little push. That's not a super tight fit. If you don't have a press, you should be able to just knock it off there with a hammer and a punch. And on the front of these, it's a 6007 bearing. So I'm going to clean up the shaft, and we're ready to put a new bearing on it. Shaft is all cleaned up, ready for the new bearing. If you're going to drive this on there with a hammer and a punch, which there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, anytime you're driving on a bearing, if the part that you're driving it on is a press fit on the center, you want to push, you want to tap along this inner race. Do not do it on the outer race because that puts a shock load through the balls to the inner race, and that will put little dents in your balls, and then the bearing won't work right. But if you tap it on the inner race, it'll go down on there and be perfectly fine, as long as you just don't go crazy on it. If you were putting this in a housing that was on the outside, then you would want to tap around the outer race. Same deal, you don't want to put a shock load through the bearing. Since I have a press, I'm just going to put it in the press and push it right back down on there. And right in it goes. Now, put a new snap ring on it. All right, so I matched up the old snap ring with the new one in the kit. Now we're going to drop it down in there. it is in all the way around. Now all that's left on this snout is the slinger. We'll drop it on there, and that's not a very tight fit. And that is as far as that goes. But I do want to make sure when it's all bolted together that can't come loose, because you don't want that rattling around in there. But I think it will be sandwiched, should be sandwiched behind the slave cylinder. In the instructions with the couplers, it says there's any arrows or markings on which side of the coupler should go which way. To follow those, if there aren't any arrows, it can go either way. Okay, so it doesn't matter which way it goes. What I did want to do is see you have a thicker section here and a thinner section here. And that can be moved to the other side of the coupler, which would change the loading. So this is how it came out. The old one came out. The thicker side would be to the right of the lug on here. So setting it up the same way it was before. Bolts have been cleaned. Blue Loctite applied. I'm going to torque them down to 52 foot-pounds because that's what I found in the service manual for the smaller style couplings in the older cars and the automatics. So 52 foot-pounds, and then we'll be ready to bolt this onto the drive shaft. All right, the end is setting back on the drive shaft. I don't know if you can see it, but I put punch marks there, there, and there. So it's back in the same orientation that it was to start with. Same deal, clean the bolts, blue Loctite, put them in there, 52 foot-pounds. Torqued them together pretty much the same way I took them apart, with the crowbar and wrench just backwards. And worked pretty good. Just make sure nothing slips when you're pushing down on this, or you could smack your face into the floor. Don't ask me how I know. All right, there is a completed flywheel end of the drive shaft. I think to keep my video links from getting too long on this project, I'll do this other end, the transmission end, in a separate video here shortly. I'll go ahead and post this one up. Thanks for watching.